Hi, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential and I'm here today with 6 of my favourite overlocker tips and tricks. So I'm going to solve some of those really annoying problems for you, but also give you some ideas of how you can use your overlocker as well. Have you ever sewn a piece of fabric and noticed annoying loops hanging off the edge and you just don't know why it's happening or how to fix it? Have you ever tried to sew a nice stripy t-shirt but you just cannot get those stripes to match? Or have you ever wondered whether you could sew a dart on your overlocker? Well, I'm going to cover all of these and more in this video. Everything I talk about is available on our website and you'll find links to our website below where we stock a wide range of overlockers, overlocking threads, needles and accessories. So do jump on and check that out. And if you like what you see today, please like and subscribe. Who doesn't love a stripy jersey t-shirt? It's one of the most popular things people want to sew on an overlocker. When you sew them on your sewing machine, you can use a walking foot to get those stripes to match up. But how do you do it on an overlocker? How do you stop those stripes from misaligning as you sew? Well, with this tip, you're going to get that stripe matching perfect on your overlocker every time. So the first tip for getting your stripes to line up nicely on the overlocker is to simply position the fabric as close as you can to the needles. So I'm just going to lift the needles, I'm going to lift the foot, and then I'm going to line my fabric up so that the stripes are aligning correctly. And then I'm going to position that fabric under the foot, and I can even put it under the needles and lower the needles so that they're sitting in the fabric before I start to sew. And that's just a good tip anyway with an overlocker. It's always better to try and get your fabric closer to the needles if you can, because that will help with the feed through rather than putting it under the foot. If you can get it closer to the needles, that will really help with your precision and accuracy. Now I'm sewing a 1/4 inch seam here so I can get it right under. Obviously if you were doing a 5/8 seam, your fabric would be protruding the edge here and you'd be cutting it with your knife, but in that case you can always just snip the excess off at that first bit so that you can get it under the foot, and then you'll be able to do the same thing, and then the fabric from here on down would be cut away by the blade. So let's just lower the foot. I've got my stripes lining up, so I'm going to go ahead and sew now. And you can just reposition if you need to. I don't think I've cut this fabric particularly accurately, but you can reposition if you need to. Just trimming off a little bit of excess there. But there you can see I've got those stripes matching beautifully, and just by positioning the fabric under the needles at the start, that got me that precision and accuracy and fed everything through for that great result. Now another option you've got for stripe matching that works really well is to use some of this Wonder tape, which you can get on our website. It doesn't gum up your needles and it washes away after use, and this stuff is just wonderful stuff. I use it to help me sew invisible zips. I just stick the zip tapes down with it rather than using pins. But yeah, it's also really good if you just want that extra confidence when you're trying to match stripes and doing a task like this. It's a double-sided tape, so you can see I've just stuck it within the seam allowance there, and I'm just going to remove the tape off there, and that makes it double-sided. And then I'm just going to stick the stripes together, so just bear with me while I do that. But this would be good for anybody who isn't quite confident enough with the previous method I've just shown you, or if you were working with like a really long piece of fabric, or perhaps like very small narrow stripes. You could do this if you just wanted that extra bit of confidence, but it just sticks together like so. Just make sure I've got those stripes lined up properly. I think I've missed that last one, so we might have to, I can just remove unpeel it and re-stick it. So you can see I've got everything stuck together nicely there with that tape now, and I can just give it a good squeeze to secure it. And again, I can employ the same tactics with the needle position and the fabric position. And again, this is working with a 1/4 inch seam. If you're working with a 5/8 seam, you just want to position your tape across that way a bit so that it was within your seam allowance. But I'm just going to do it with a 1/4 inch seam here. So just lower the needles down into the fabric, lower the foot, and then the same as before, we'll just sew that seam. And I haven't really got to worry about sort of checking the position and repositioning as I sew, because I know that it's taped together and it's going to stay where I want it to. Okay, so, and there you can see that that's worked perfectly again, and it's just a really, really easy method of sewing those stripes with real accuracy. Sometimes you sew a lovely neat seam on your overlocker, but those looper threads are just protruding the edge of the fabric and overhanging the raw edge of the fabric too much, and you don't know why or how to fix it. Well, it's actually really easy. Let me show you with this handy tip. So often if you're working with a piece of lighter weight, very stretchy jersey like this one, I think this might be a polyester jersey, or some of the viscose jerseys can be very lightweight, you might find that the loops from your looper threads overhang the edge of the fabric. And the reason for that is as the fabric feeds under the foot, it stretches like so, and therefore the looper fabrics end up overhanging the edge of the fabric. So I'll just show you what I mean. I'm just going to sew a row of stitches now without making any adjustments to the settings on the machine. Now, it's not massively exaggerated on this example. I'm just going to put some blue fabric here because the stitches are cream and I want you to be able to see them. But you can see there, those loops are just overhanging the edge of the fabric. I actually would be pretty happy with that. But sometimes it can be more exaggerated than that and you might not be happy with it. Now, if that's the case, as I explained, because it's to do with how the fabric feeds through the machine, all you need to do is knock your differential feed up once, and that will act as almost like a gathering motion and prevent the fabric from stretching as much as you sew it through the machine. So I've knocked the differential feed up one now, and I'm just going to re-sew a seam now. And you'll see there, if I just compare those two pieces of fabric, so if we get the first one that's got the looper threads overhanging the edge slightly, just bear with me. So you can see they're just overhanging the edge slightly there. And then we've got the one that I've just done where I knocked the differential feed up, and you can see that's all a lot tighter, so you haven't got those looper threads overhanging the edge. Everything's a lot tighter into the edge of the fabric, and that has just removed that. And like I say, you'll get much more exaggerated loops sometimes on certain fabrics and on certain machines, but yeah, just altering your differential feed, just knocking it up a notch. Hopefully you can see there the difference that's made, and those looper threads are nice and tight on that raw edge of the fabric there now. Sewing darts in knit fabrics can be tricky, but did you know you can sew them using your overlocker to reduce bulk and get lovely neat results very, very quickly? And if you're feeling tempted at this point to update your overlocker or to buy an overlocker, don't forget to check out the links to our website below, where you can find a full range of overlockers, accessories, threads and everything you need. But let me show you now how to sew those darts on an overlocker. To sew a dart on your overlocker, mark your dart with chalk and then position the fabric with the start of the dart marking lining up with the needle. You can do this with a 3-thread overlocking stitch if you want a narrower stitch. I'm doing it with a 4-thread overlocking stitch. But then all we're going to do is use the marking for the needle to follow that line and sew the dart to the point. So you can see there, I've got that right along the dart line, and then I just need to do the tapestry needle trick with the excess thread. So if I just snip the excess thread off there, I can use my tapestry needle to feed those threads back through the stitches and tidy that up. So just bear with me while I do that. Just feed that back through there. And it's just a nice, quick, easy way to sew darts in knit fabrics. Also gets rid of any excess bulk because obviously you're trimming off any excess fabric that you don't need. And then once you've done that, you just need to give it a good press as you would do with any dart. But there you have it, a lovely, neat dart sewn in knit fabric, and then you can just press that up or down, whichever direction you want it to go in. You can even apply a bit of fabric glue to the stitches if you wanted to, but you shouldn't need to if you've tucked your threads away like that. But a super quick, easy way to sew a dart in a knit fabric. One of the most common things people sew on an overlocker are cuffs for things like sweatshirts. Normally you sew the seam, you fold it over and you end up doubling up those stitches and creating extra bulk. Well, with this tip, I'll show you how you can sew a cuff in one simple step and only have a single line of stitching. Quite often when we're using our overlocker, we're making cuffs for sweatshirts and things like that. And normally it's a 2-step process, but with this tip, you can do it in one step. So you take your fabric piece, fold the 2 short ends together, and then fold the fabric again so that the long ends come together. And then we're just going to sew down this side. And once you've done that, you can then turn the cuff through and it's all been sewn in one simple step. Even the most talented sewers are very well acquainted with their unpickers, and when you sew something wrong on the sewing machine, it's relatively easy to unpick it. But when you get something wrong on the overlocker, the thought of unpicking all those threads can be just so painful. But if you understand how the overlocker stitch works, then you'll be able to unpick much more quickly and efficiently. So let me show you how. Now, in every sewer's life, well, probably every sewer's sewing session, there comes a time when we have to unpick some stitches, and that can feel overwhelming with overlocker stitches because obviously there's so much more thread to contend with. But if you understand how the overlocking stitch works, it makes it easier to unpick the stitches. So the thing you need to understand is that the looper threads, which is the pink thread running in that motion along the edge of the fabric there, and the red thread running along the edge of the fabric there, they don't actually penetrate the fabric, they just wrap around the edge of the fabric. The only threads that penetrate the fabric are the needle threads, which are the green line and the parallel yellow line that you see there. So if you unpick just your needle threads, and you can usually do about 1 every 3 or so stitches, if you just unpick those, when you pull the looper threads, everything will unravel nice and easily, whereas if you try and unpick the looper threads, it'll just all end up in a big mess. But I've caught it there, but you can see there that just comes out nice and easily there. And then another little tip as well for when you're doing this job is that if you get one of these unpickers with a rubber end, we've got some on the website, I'll pop a link below for you. You can just remove any short stray threads by just dragging the rubber end across the fabric, and it's just really helpful and quickly removes any loose stray threads. If a seam isn't going to be crossed and you're left with a long tail of threads after sewing an overlocking seam, you might not be sure what to do with that tail of threads. With this simple and effective tip, you can tuck them away neatly and secure everything. So if you've ever wondered, what should I do with that loose tail at the end of a line of overlocking stitches, I just like to snip the end off. And then I use a tapestry needle and just thread the threads through the eye of the needle, and then you can use the needle to feed those loose threads back through the row of stitches on the overlocking. You can do it on the wrong side if you want to, you know, you can choose which side you thread through, but just thread them through like so, and that will secure them. And then you can just snip the excess off. And I just thought I'd share this tip because it might be obvious to lots of people, but actually when I first started using my overlocker, I had no idea that that was what people did. So I thought it would be nice to share that handy little tip. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful and useful. I hope it's inspired you with a couple of new techniques to try and solve some of those annoying problems for you. Everything was filmed on my Baby Lock Desire 3, which is a cover lock machine available on our website. You'll find a link to it below, but you'll also find a wide range of other overlockers and cover stitch machines, all the threads, needles and accessories you need on our website too. If you like what you see today, please like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.